Please note this episode contains discussions of situations or themes that some may find emotionally distressing. Listener discretion is advised.
Nothing ever really prepares you for someone telling you that your husband and your 8-year-old daughter have been killed. And I remember waking up and looking down at my bed with the sheet over it and then just a gap where my left leg used to be. My friend came over, I was kind of berating myself, and she just said, talk to yourself as if you're talking to your best friend, because you wouldn't say that to me. You would say, how incredible that you are surviving, you're coping. That's not going to happen to my kids, because what's happened to them is so unfair. Their whole blanket of childhood naivety has been completely ripped away from them. So I was like, I'm going to do this.
Today's guest is the inspiring Victoria Milligan, a TEDx and international speaker, a professional fitness coach, and a trainee psychotherapist. Now, growing up in the north of England, Victoria describes her life as being smooth sailing, meeting her dream husband and becoming a mum to 4 wonderful children. But Victoria's life changed forever on the 5th of May 2013, when her family were involved in a horrific speedboat accident, tragically taking the lives of her husband Nick and her 8-year-old daughter Emily. Overnight, Victoria went from having a happy, ordinary family life to being given titles of widow, sole parent, amputee, and a bereaved parent. Any one of these would have and could have been too much for any of us to bear. However, Victoria's mindset has made her into the inspiring woman she is today, sharing her experiences to empower others who've been thrown life's toughest challenges. Victoria's story is one of resilience, self-discovery, and bravery. And today, Victoria's here to share her story with you. Well, Victoria, welcome to the show. Firstly, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Very cold walk from the tube, but other than that, absolutely fine.
Well, it's so good to have you on the show. And I, just before we started as well, we've just completed your graph of life, which is where we always start. And I just want to dive in because I feel there's so much that I want to ask you today. And if I can, Victoria, I want to go back right to the start of your life. And what's the earliest childhood memory that you have in your mind?
I think it is me with my dog, who is called Chippy. And I used to sleep in kind of Chippy's bed. So I didn't actually want to sleep in my bed. I must have been maybe 3 or something. And I remember my mum often saying, no, you can't sleep there. That's Chippy's bed. You have to go and sleep in your own bed. And I had a half sister who is 10 years older than me, who actually is, at the time, probably 10 years was obviously such a massive age gap as we were growing up. But now she is so close to me. And she used to think of me as her little baby. So I think another memory is her sort of pushing me around in a little pram as her kind of baby, like a real little doll. And so I think that was it, sort of sleeping with the dog, not being allowed to do what I wanted to do and not understanding why I wasn't allowed to do it. And I had to sleep in a bed. It didn't make sense to me. So yeah, I think that would be the first.
And what was that like for you then as a young Victoria? So you just said there, not being allowed to do what you wanted to do. How did you react in those scenarios?
I think I was quite stubborn. I couldn't understand the reasons behind it, the sort of rules of childhood about why you had to sleep in a bed and why I couldn't sleep with the dog and why it was dirty and that's not what you do kind of thing. So I think it was my first realization of having to slightly follow rules of society and not being allowed to just get away with what I wanted to do and live slightly feral, I suppose. So my mum, I suppose, trying to bring in boundaries to start with into my life. And yeah, I remember it being quite difficult and actually really kicking up a fuss and being quite stubborn. And she had a lot of these sort of things that at school, I really loved reading, and I loved reading Enid Blyton books. Yeah. And at school, Enid Blyton books weren't approved of. I think they thought the language wasn't, it wasn't very well written, or it wasn't good enough. And I remember the English teacher saying, no, they're not allowed. You have to read other books instead. So I'd hide them under a floorboard in my bedroom. So my mum couldn't find them. So kind of looking back, there was a lot of, being quite naughty and kind of hiding things from my mum and being a bit stubborn, I suppose, and doing things that I wanted to do because it didn't make sense. I suppose I was trying to kind of make sense of things and that all I'm reading. So why can't I read what I want to do? If it feels good to me, actually, why can't I do it? And I think as life has gone on, I've kind of realised actually, of course, we have to follow rules of society and family and what's expected. But I also do live my life a lot of if it feels good and it's not hurting anybody, just do it. If you enjoy it, then just do it. Yeah.
It's powerful. And I think, and I was looking here on your graph. So we're talking about your earlier years there. And I know before I get into your 20s, there's a dip here when you're probably about 18, 19.
Yeah.
What happened here?
So I was a really good girl at school for most of my education. So I did really well in GCSEs. My mum, who isn't with us anymore, unfortunately, she died just before COVID, but she was an amazing woman. She'd grown up sort of back streets of Liverpool, 5 children in a house, alcoholic parents, lost her dad in the war, that sort of thing. So she'd really struggled. No one had gone on to university. No one had carried on education after 16. So she really, really wanted the best for me. And I know that came from a place of love. But for me at the time, it seemed like very conditional love. So I will only love you if you are successful at maths and English and music and tennis and drama. And so I was put into every after school club that was there. I did grade 8 piano age 16, which I think I enjoyed, but I don't really know because it wasn't my choice. It was her choice. So looking back, I feel like a lot of autonomy was taken away from me and independence and choosing things that I wanted to do. It was all what she wanted me to do. And at the time, I didn't realize that. And there was a lot of expectation that if I won a tennis match 6-2, 6-3, why did you lose 5 games kind of thing. So she was like quite a sort of tiger mum, actually, looking back at it. And so, as I said, I did really well in my GCSEs, kind of straight A's. Actually, I was the last year to do O-levels, which does really show my age. But, and then I think I slightly rebelled and got in with this. I was at an all-girls school, 2 quite naughty girls that we used to hang out with. I mean, when I say naughty, so not naughty, really. We were, we just probably wouldn't concentrate. We'd slightly mess around in class. And so for my A-levels, I got BCD. So I didn't get into the university that I wanted to go into. I wanted to read law and I got into a poly, which is great, but I went to Bristol Poly for a year. And it was my first sort of non-success, my first failure. And it hit quite hard because I'd always slightly sailed through life and had achieved and nothing was that difficult. And, why is everyone talking about challenges and worries and this is all completely fine? And then it was kind of, oh, okay, things can go wrong and you actually do have to put the work in. You can't just turn up. And I turned up at this. So that was the dip. And then after my first year there, I didn't really feel like I fitted in. It was, I'd come from the north of England. It was quite public school. A lot of people had been away traveling for their gap years and that sort of thing. And I hadn't been to Nepal or Vietnam, or I'd been to kind of North Wales in a caravan, that sort of thing. So a bit different. And I just didn't feel that I was part of the culture. And then I accidentally, this sounds so ridiculous, broke my arm wrestling. Okay, so maybe I didn't accidentally. Somebody broke my arm, which is such a ridiculous story and my kids think it's absurd. But I don't know how it happened. And it was my left arm and I'm left-handed. So I couldn't write my exams. So it was a bit of a, do I stay? I'm quite enjoying the course, but I'm not enjoying the culture or the people. I don't really feel like I fit in. I wasn't being myself. It was a real awareness that I was trying to act to be somebody else to fit in. So I left and went to do, for my A-levels, I'd done ancient history and French. So I loved history. So I went to do history at Reading instead. And actually that was, I think, when it started to go up again, because I met friends for life at my true 8 girlfriends now. I met there, absolutely loved the course. And it was sort of it was my dad that really wanted me to do law. So again, I was not following my own kind of internal autonomy or locus of evaluation. It was more other people's. It was kind of what do they want me to do? Okay, I'll do that because then you'll love me and you'll care for me and you'll like me more.
Yeah.
Whereas it was probably the first time that I was like, no, I love history and I really want to go and study that. So that was sort of where the high came from.
And I feel like I see that today when I meet parents who've got children, and I know we'll talk about your children shortly as well, where there's these obviously very different styles. Some who, and I know some in my family, they put them into every bloody class every after, and you must be the best, you must get this. And others who actually sit down and say, what brings you joy and happiness? Like, where's your views on this?
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line, though, of putting the boundaries and expectations versus let them be free souls and find their happiness? Where's your view on that?
Yeah. No, I think from a really early age, treat them as individuals and let them learn that they have a choice in life. Because if we take away all their choice in life, when they get to adults, they're so reliant on other people making decisions for them that they're all a bit lost. And then they just start to become a bit institutionalized by kind of school, university, work. And then you kind of become an adult and you think, oh my goodness, I've got to make decisions and, you know, be a grown up but everyone else makes decisions for me. So I think it's really important. And I didn't have that growing up. And I think it's actually taken me a long time to adult, actually.
Yeah.
Is what I've realized now, because, you know, you get to 18. I look at my eldest is now 22. And I remember when she turned 18, I took her we went to an exhibition at the Tate Modern and we had a drink on that beautiful balcony that overlooks St. Paul's. And I sort of burst into tears. And I said, my gosh, you're now an adult. That's so exciting. But then I realised, of course she isn't. She's 18. She's been living at home. She's been at school. And it takes a long time for you to be able to do that. Yeah. So I have tried to be quite, I don't know, just quite giving. I mean, it's such a fine line being a parent because, of course, there's discipline. You want them to do well. But I kind of feel they need to fail a little bit as well. Yeah. And also know what it is to enjoy things. I mean, I'll never forget my second, who is quite stubborn. I remember taking her and kind of, we've got kind of local gym near us. And I said, right, we're going to do swimming lessons. We're going to do gymnastics and tennis. And she'd be really grumpy, kind of age 5 or 6, and dragging her along, trying to get her changed into a swim costume. And it's like, why are we doing this? And I said, well, you know, sort of my job as a parent is to give you lots of opportunities and then you can try everything out and see what you like. And she said, I'm just going to stop you right there. I don't like any of them and I don't want to do any of them. And I was sort of like, okay, well, that's fine. You know, that's your voice. And in her own time, she's got to really enjoy tennis, but it wasn't me forcing it on her. Because if I look back at the way my mum was with me, she kind of forced tennis on me. She forced piano on me, public speaking, that sort of thing. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I do love them all still now, but it's my choice now to kind of enjoy them.
Interesting. And as you said, your daughter now, the eldest, 22.
Yeah.
And when I look on this graph, so 22, things on the upwards trajectory here. And now I know at 26 then, you then fall in love.
Yes.
And you meet Nick or Nico. Just tell me about how you met Nick or Nico, who would later become your husband. How did you meet him?
So when I was at Reading, when I was at university, I met a guy who worked in advertising in London, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So history is not particularly vocational. I knew I didn't want to move back up north to live with my parents again. I was quite independent, so I kind of left home at 18. And I came to London and there was a job going, and it was when advertising was starting to separate out their media buying, so from the creative, so less full service agency, but you'd have more power of buying the media, better price, whatever, when you've got the volume. So I started working St Martin's Lane at an independent called BBJ, which doesn't exist anymore, but it's part of Dentsu Aegis, quite a big firm, and absolutely loved it. And it was when was it? So 93, 94. So media and advertising was still booming. There was some great jollies still to be had, which there aren't so much now. It was just a really fun, right in the centre of London, really young, fun people, taking clients out for lunches, dinners. I worked on Bass, beer company, Scottish Courage. There was Volkswagen. It was just a really fun place to be. And Nick where was he then? So he was at ITV, TVS until they lost their license. Then he started Channel 5. He was one of the 4 that started Channel 5. And I was what's it called? Where you give testers of beer. So it was for Holston Pills.
Oh,
They
yeah.
recreated Holston Pills. So my first line to him was, I've just given you 5,000 free bottles of Holston Pills for their Channel 5 launch party, which I thought was quite a good chat up. And then we just met, and he was 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
So when my girlfriends met him from university, we all met at Soho House because he was one of the founders of Soho House with Nick Jones as well. And one of the first kind of on the committee. Yeah. And they said, oh my goodness, Victoria's met a really old bloke, because he went grey sort of late 20s anyway. And I feel it was so funny looking back when we turned 36 thinking, that's really not very old actually, is it? No, and we thought he was this really old man. So they were already concerned about me. But no, it really was, I think. I mean, I was young, but I dated a bit at university in kind of early 20s, and we just had such a connection. We had similar values and beliefs and very strong family values. He came from a really strong family as well. And just having fun together, but in a very kind of balanced way, enjoying London, enjoying life, and quite sort of interested in exploring and traveling. And we did a lot of European cities together while we were kind of courting, and it just was right. And I always think marriage is quite a leap of faith, and I know you're about to do it, so I won't talk too much about it, because you never know what kind of dad they're going to be, or husband going forward. But I did pick a really good one.
And you got married in 1999.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you get married, and then I know you went on to have children together with you and Nick. So what was that like, becoming a mum to, you had 4 children?
Yeah.
How did that feel, becoming a mum for the first time, especially based on what you said about you and Chippy as a young age?
Yeah.
Was it Chippy, right?
Chippy, yeah. I know, my cute little Chippy. Oh, it was amazing. I mean, I wanted it more than anything. I felt so maternal. And I think growing up, I had a younger brother who still have a younger brother. I'm not particularly close to him.
Yeah.
I've got, my older sister was 10 years older than me. So I felt a little bit like an only child growing up. I don't now, because as I said, I'm really close to Angela. Yeah. But I wanted, when I met Nick and his family, he's one of 4. Okay. And they were just crazy and loud, and they lived in this like kind of farm in Somerset, and it was all just a bit of a mess, and there was dogs and horses, and I was like, I want that. I want a bit of chaos. I want lots of children, and I want it to just, I'm not big on complete structure and everything has to be completely ordered. I like a bit of mess and chaos and stuff and noise, and just, I like people. I like interesting people, and I like their opinions and their views, and so that's why we decided to have. We didn't know we were going to have 4. To be fair, I think we wanted. Does anyone know that? I mean, I think some people have a number, don't they, that they want to reach. We had 3 girls, and then everyone thinks we carried on because we wanted the boy, which absolutely is not true at all, because Nick was not super into. I mean, he loved his girls, to be honest. And whenever kind of friends with a boy would come round, and he'd start wielding a sort of hammer or something, Nick would be like, I love my girls, and their colouring and their painting and everything. But no, it was. It was incredible. It was amazing. I had a dip there because we had Amber, who was our eldest, and the joy of your first child, you can never really put into words, I think, what it means. I do remember holding her and just thinking, actually, I can't believe that my parents loved me as much as I love this being in my hands. And they're so reliant, and it's so terrifying. It's so amazing. It's so incredible. The fact they actually let you go home from hospital with this thing that you have to look after, I think, is ridiculous. And after about 4 or 5 months, I remember my mum saying, I think there's something wrong with Amber's eyes. And I thought, no, she's absolutely fine. My firstborn, she's perfect. What are you talking about? So I took her to see this specialist ophthalmologist at Great Ormond Street, who was slightly older, had the worst bedside manner ever, and just said, well, yes, it's nystagmus because she has albinism. So she's albino, which is so rare. And it's a gene that Nicole will have and that I will have. And we all carry all these rare genes, but the chances of you meeting someone else with it is, well, for albinism, it's 1 in 20,000. But then it means that every pregnancy is 1 in 4. So every time I got pregnant again, it was 25% chance that the child would have albinism. So it was such a blow that I thought I created this incredibly perfect being, And I now knew more about her future. I knew she'd never drive. He painted a really awful picture and said she's partially sighted. She'll have real trouble making friends because she has to get really close to people. So it was a real shock, and I found it really difficult to cope with. And so I think it was my first, well, maybe second kind of massive curveball that life is not just an upward step to the end. There's some big snakes there that you kind of have to watch out for, and they'll take you right back down to the bottom again. And you've got to learn how to build yourself back up again.
Wow, and as those years went on then, obviously the children grow up, you go on to have 3 more children, so 4 in total. And your 4th child is a boy.
Yes.
Yeah, Kit.
Yeah.
And then it sounds, as you say, the perfect family. You know, you join this family and you got the noise and the kids that you wished for when you first met Nick. And then, like many families, you go on holiday, whether they're overseas or in a caravan in North Wales. And I know, Victoria, in 2013, and I can see another tip that's coming here.
Yeah.
Life changed a lot for you and the family.
Yeah.
On the 5th of May of 2013. Just tell us, if you can, what happened?
So we lived in London, we had a house down in Cornwall where we used to go and visit, and it really was our kind of sanctuary where we used to go to for young children and lots of long school holidays. So it was that almost a childhood that I'd had, messing around on the beach, building sandcastles, surfing, swimming, rock climbing, that sort of thing. So it was, completely heavenly. But on the 5th of May, we took out our boat. So we had a rib. And we took our boat out up and down the Camel Estuary, sort of near Rock and Padstow. And it was a beautiful, beautiful sunny day when I look back on it now, which is quite unusual for Cornwall. But it was one of those magical days where you think, actually, why does anybody go anywhere else in the world? And we were just having a gorgeous family day out. We'd had fish and chips, Rick Stein's fish and chips in Padstow. And we were kind of going up and down the estuary. And it all started to go a bit wrong when we were coming back into our mooring into Rock and the tide was going out. And sort of what happened next has taken me a long time to, well, I mean, it's never going to make sense, but I guess it was like a perfect storm of events that came together that any other day it wouldn't happen like that. And what happened next was a very sharp turn on the steering wheel and a kind of slip on the accelerator that caused the boat, as we were trying to make the turn, to go into a sort of wheelie, as the Marine Accident Investigation Board called it afterwards, and G-force of a jumbo jet kind of taking off. And so as it righted itself, the 6 of us were flown out into freezing cold water. And it was very disorientating. It was really noisy. I didn't really know where anybody was. All I could see was the boat going round in very tight, fast circles because, unfortunately, we'd been coming into mooring after doing some water skiing and stuff, and the kill cord had not been reattached. So the safety mechanism that stops the engine. And as I said, the boat was going round and round and round. And I just remember grabbing Kit, who was screaming, "No more cold water, mummy," and trying to swim towards a beach to save us. But as the tide was going out, the boat was moving. So, it was all just horrible and noisy. And eventually I kind of felt the boat coming towards me and hit my chest with the hull of it. I didn't feel it cut my leg or see it cut Kit's leg. But soon afterwards, the RNLI, who were amazing, the safety boat came up and they drew alongside our boat. And then a volunteer member kind of jumped in and stopped the boat. And it was all really kind of eerily quiet. And I thought everyone else was safe and they're fine. And kind of me and Kit, I think, had been a bit injured. There was quite a lot of blood in the water. I remember feeling a bit dipping in and out of consciousness. We were rescued by the RNLI and then taken to Derriford in Devon, which was the nearest trauma hospital, by helicopter. And Nico and Emily weren't in the helicopter. And I don't really remember thinking that anything had happened to them. I think I remember thinking maybe this is just for the people that have been hurt. So we'll meet them there and that'll be fine. And it was only when we got there that I found out from a policeman that they'd been killed by the boat. So, nothing ever really prepares you for someone telling you that your husband and your 8-year-old daughter have been killed. And then I had to go into surgery. So I knew my leg wasn't looking great. But I remember just thinking, God, I can't do that. I'm now a widow and a single parent, sole parent, as my divorced friends keep telling me. And I remember just begging with this poor, quite young surgeon to save my leg. It was like midnight. And I just said, look, just whatever you do, just strap it back together, all be fine. And then off we go. I never, ever thought that I would have my leg amputated. Just didn't even cross my mind, weirdly. And then I woke up on the Monday, the bank holiday Monday. And I remember waking up, gives me shivers, and looking down at my bed with the sheet over it, and then just a gap where my left leg used to be.
And how did that, I mean, at the moment, and thank you for sharing, because I know it's really not easy to share these moments.
No,
and
it's really hard.
And the emotions come back of the memories. And you're sat in bed now, you've heard the news of what's happened with Nick and Emily, your husband and daughter. And at this point, so you wake up as what, like, what's going through your mind? I mean, can you remember? There's just so much that.
I think weirdly, I remember looking at the clock and going, why is it still going? Like, surely the world stops now because my world has ended. And surely the whole world has to stop because this horrific thing has happened. And I remember the clock not stopping, and then there was that realization of, oh my God, life's not going to stop. I've got to find a way to live. And it is that whole bizarre initial post-trauma adrenaline rush of kind of, somehow I've got to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. But I just remember complete lack. I had no mobility. All my independence had been taken away from me. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't do anything without phoning someone to ask me. And I just remember thinking that I don't understand. None of it made sense. That yesterday, 24 hours ago, I was a happily married mother of 4, my gorgeous husband, in our lovely holiday home down in Cornwall. How on earth am I here without my leg and Nico and Emily are dead? It was so bizarre and awful that I just couldn't really get my head around it. And I couldn't even relate to the new, like, disabled, single parent, bereaved parent. None of it made sense. Still now, a lot of it doesn't really make sense. But I think a lot of the worst things as well, like, it was so public. It was on the front page of every newspaper. The Sun had destroyed, and then Telegraph loving family and speedboat disaster. And it was so horrific and high profile. And this beautiful picture of the 6 of us that we had hanging in our hall was suddenly on the front page of every newspaper. And it was awful. So trying to kind of stop paparazzi coming into the hospital, trying to stop paparazzi coming into our house when we got home. And the kids were on a different floor. So trying to kind of manage their questions of, did Daddy hurt when he died? What happened to Emily was so horrific. But weirdly, I do remember just kind of kicking into that maternal sort of knowing what to say, weirdly, of telling the truth, but not hiding anything from them, but not telling them anything kind of graphic either. And really wanting to reassure them that I was going to be okay, because obviously they were so concerned about me. And Kit, meanwhile, had his leg saved temporarily because he had, like, I think 2 more nerves attached to me than me. And then that was a long journey for the next year of 26 operations, I think that little boy had, who was 4. They couldn't even find an external fixator small enough to fix his leg, so he kept kind of walking with this really weird limp around.
And at that point as well, so you're in hospital. I mean, you and Kit are both undergoing surgery, and the other 2 children at the same time are with you in hospital?
So Amber had her leg cut and her hand cut, so she's incredibly lucky not to have lost any limbs. Olivia was 11 at the time, Amber was 12, so she was the only one not injured, which again has kind of had its own issues because she we were initially rescued by these 2 canoeists that came up, and she was the only one that wasn't hurt, so she had to push the canoes away from rocks, and she has definitely got a bit of sort of survivor's guilt around that, about the only one not being injured. And was I really there because I don't have a scar from it, or I'm not, kind of, there's no visible reminder of it. Obviously, there's incredibly mental reminders about it, but that's had its own issues as well.
And I think, Victoria, speaking about issues and challenges and knowing how do you do the right thing, the maternal instinct kicking in, I just want to bring up a theme really, which is intergenerational trauma.
Yeah.
Which, just for those people listening, which is, where a parent or a generation goes through something, and if not dealt with properly, it gets passed down to others. How do you find the balance, or did you find the balance of, I should share this, I shouldn't share this, well, they were there, they were not there, it's a memory of their father, but I don't want to make this traumatic. How do you know what to do?
I mean, I suppose, there's no rules, there's no right and wrong. Like grief, there's no rules. Everyone does it in their own way. I think a lot is dependent on who you were as a person before, as you've touched on, what your relationship was like. And I think we were just feeling our way. It was so bizarre. So it happened in the May. Nico's birthday, Emily's birthday was August 19th. That was actually the second worst day of my life. I literally cried all day because she should be turning 9. How is she not turning 9?
And where were the kids that day with you?
So we were all in Cornwall, actually. And I just remember being on the phone to my friends, just crying. And the worst thing with her as well was she was in year 4 at school, local school. So I was still taking Kit to school, seeing all her friends, going into the next year and then the next year. And, anybody that's lost a child, it is that loss of potential, and that why are they not growing older? Why I can't help. And I know it's self-harm, but imagining what she would be doing now. She'd be 19. Would she be following Olivia to university? Would she have had a gap? It's so hard. And you see her peers doing things that she should be doing. So that I find incredibly difficult. But I don't think that will ever stop. I don't think I'll ever stop imagining what she's doing. And then Nico's birthday was September the 15th. And again, we were all sort of lost. It was sort of like, we need to mark it, but he's obviously not here. But we did end up, I don't know, it just felt like the right thing to do. We ended up having a birthday party for him. He was obsessed with Cadbury's. So my friend's an amazing cake maker. She made this incredible purple Cadbury's chocolate cake. And, I got our family, I got his friends around, because it's not just us grieving.
No.
It's the ripples and everyone else grieving. And it was just lovely to come together and be with other people to support each other. And we did that for a couple of years, and then it just felt weird. Like, why are we having a birthday party? Yeah. And then it just felt sad that he wasn't there. And then with Emily, I remember the one after that, I said, let's go and celebrate our love for her in the biggest church in London, St. Paul's. So we all went to St. Paul's and walked around and did the whole kind of, it's amazing and incredible. We all lit a candle for her and placed it in the candle holder and sat and looked at them. And then Olivia stood up and moved her candle to the middle of the middle row. And we all looked at her and she said, well, she always wanted to be the centre of attention. So it was kind of like these amazing personal moments, and trying to, still have them in our lives and remember them. And I think I talk about, I think we still feel a family of 6, but just with 2 people not there. And I don't feel our relationship has ended with them in any way. No. So I still feel that they're incredibly still part of our lives, even though they're not physically present. And I think a lot of people who have gone through grief will probably feel the same. Like, your relationship doesn't end just because they're not there. Like, you know them so well. You would know what they would say, what they would be thinking. I quite often ask Nico about, we're choosing new schools for Kit at the moment. Where do you think he should go? He's your son as well. We're still kind of co-parenting in a way, which sounds odd, but I kind of feel like we are.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's just very much kind of feeling the way. And whenever we go down to Cornwall, they're buried there in this incredible, beautiful church called St. Enodoc, overlooking Damon Bay. It's spectacular. And, sometimes it really feels right to go to the grave, and sometimes it doesn't. And I don't want to force them to go. And it's quite hard to force kids to, right, today we're going to go and be sad and talk to Nico and Emily. But then last year they kind of led it. And Olivia said, let's all sit around eating Cadbury's again and tell dad or ask him the things that we would have wanted to ask him over the last year. So she was really struggling with which university to go to. And she was like, I really wish I'd been able to ask you which university to go to.
Victoria, can I just ask, because as a mum, I think it's quite remarkable. You sat around there with your children, but how that must feel to see your children obviously asking their dad, what would your advice be? Do you feel sometimes sadness because dad's not here to guide them? Or is it happiness because they still bring him into their life? Or
I think it's both. I think it's and both. I don't think it's ever one.
Yeah.
I feel really proud that they were leading it, because I think a lot of, as you move away from the loss itself and the death itself, I've found it harder to keep them alive. And, do I keep mentioning them? Or at the beginning, they're so present still that it's, it just is, I still would buy peanut butter, and Emily's the only one that likes it. So I was like, why am I buying peanut butter? Or there was where she sat at the kitchen table, or there was, I'm cooking Nico's favourite dinner tonight. And obviously as time goes, that becomes less because your world has got bigger around it. So I was really proud of them for leading it. And grief obviously changes with age. So their maturation is enabling them to kind of have a bit of autonomy with their grief and what they want, and lead it a little bit and have ownership over it, rather than me constantly kind of saying, oh, we must do this, we must do that, we must do that. And there's certain times, obviously, their birthdays, Christmas is a really difficult period for us, because Nico was obsessed with Christmas, and we had the most beautiful kind of family Christmases. So it's always quite difficult. But I think, again, it's, as a mum, it's so hard, isn't it? And I don't know if I'm getting it right all the time. I've got absolutely no idea. And quite often I think it's important to say that to the kids as well. It's like, I'm feeling my way. There's absolutely no manual for this whatsoever. There's no path to follow. We're kind of figuring it all out together. And if I'm getting it wrong, let me know. But they do beautiful things, like write me Father's Day and Mother's Day cards. So that always feels quite incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And Victoria, do you ever have, which I assume you do, mornings, whether that's now or back then, where you just wake up and it's almost like living in a nightmare at times? Like, is this real? But I've got to keep on going.
Yeah.
How did you find the strength and the courage?
I think at the beginning it was very much purpose of, Kit's leg and the children. And it was, I've told you before about this book that I read in the hospital. And I remember kind of trying to find a manual for grief or trauma, or bringing up kids on their own without a dad and a disabled mum. Of course, there's no manual for that at all. And it was just more and more sad stories that I read. And there was one story about this woman who was probably in her 40s when she wrote it, but she said, I lost my brother when I was 12. And not only did I lose my brother that day, but I lost my mum as well, because she just didn't cope with the grief, and she took to alcohol and her bed. And it was quite a defining moment for me. It was about 6 months after the accident, and it was a bit of a grr moment of, that's not going to happen to my kids, because what's happened to them is so unfair. Their whole blanket of childhood naivety has been completely ripped away from them. They know awful things can happen, and they're terrified that I can't look after them, and they're too young to be on their own. So I was like, I'm going to do this. So I almost put my feelings, I think, to the back burner. And then it was a whole year of like Kit's legs and operations. So there was a lot of not burying emotions for quite a long time, because it was just busy and doing and bringing up children. And we moved house twice and doing up a new house. And then I think probably when Amber turned about 18, 19, I remember her saying to me, I think you could do with some therapy. I was like, yeah, I think you might be right. And I remember going to talk to this woman, and it was more about identity. It was sort of, I have no idea who I am anymore. I was 41 years old. Yeah. I was able-bodied. I was really happy. I was a wife. I had kids. I was a personal trainer, and I just don't know. And I know we all go through change. Kids grow up, they move. Life is change, but this was obviously a dramatic, very sudden change. And she really helped me. And I think on top of that, it's worth saying, I was slightly put on this pedestal by media, my friends, of well, you're amazing. You've coped with something that most people wouldn't be able to cope with. But actually, I kind of think I was just a mum. And I think anybody who is a parent will do anything they can for their children. Of course, there's some awful, horrific and terrible times, and there always will be. But I think my whole mantra is just really small steps and not to overface myself, because when I overface myself, I feel myself getting really anxious and scared that I can't do it.
Yeah.
And that was a really strong feeling at the beginning, was terrified of grief. Just thought, I can't, that's too much. Terrified of being a parent on my own. And it was just, once you start breaking it down, you kind of don't even realize you're doing it, but then you are doing it. And it was like learning to walk again and learning to run again. It was really small steps. Walk to the sofa, to come sit back down again. Walk to the door, come sit back down again. And then it's like anything, isn't it? Anyone that's trained for a marathon or a whatever, you know that your body has to adapt. And my body was having to adapt to not walking or balancing on a foot, but balancing on something, I don't know, a third of the size of a foot.
But it's also, as you said there, these small steps. It's something that getting to know you over the years has stuck with me. You always said, just this minute by minute, hour by hour, step by step, you can get there. And I share this because there will be people listening who are going through a dark time right now, whatever that looks like for them. And what would your advice be to somebody who's thinking, Victoria, I'm facing a challenge. Perhaps they're a widow, perhaps they've lost a child, perhaps it's a dark moment in their life and they can't see the light. What would you say to them now?
I think I would say, and I know sometimes it's not helpful, but things do get better. And I never believed that. I remember someone saying that to me at the beginning, saying, and you're right at the beginning of this. And I said, what do you mean it's going to get worse, sort of thing. But I think actually what happens is your life just gets bigger around the grief.
Yeah.
And you meet more people and you do more things. But in the moment, I always kind of say it's the frequency of joy and not the intensity. So I've really learned to plan my week with enough very small things to get me through the next, whether it's hour or get to lunchtime or get to the next day. It's not the holiday that's coming up in the summer, because that might be too far away if I'm really struggling at the moment. It's maybe, do I get up and have my favorite coffee or meet a girlfriend at my favorite coffee house or take my dogs for a walk, or something that's going to slightly shift my obsessive mindset about how awful I'm feeling at the moment, and trying to quieten those awful voices in your head that tell you that you should be doing something, or you should be doing something better, or you should be more productive or effective, or all of that when you're going through challenge and grief and trauma can just go away, because your head is so overtaken by emotion that I reckon I was working at 20% of my full capacity for quite a lot of the time. And that's okay. I think it's just accepting that that's okay. There's, my friend came over after about 6 months and I was kind of berating myself for having just got up and wearing some revolting tracksuit. I haven't even had breakfast yet. It's 12 o'clock and I have bottom shuffling down the stairs. I hadn't got my prosthetic leg yet. And I was like, look at me. I'm absolutely stay. I look awful. What is going on? And she just said, you wouldn't say that to me. If you came to me, you would say, how incredible that you are surviving, you're coping, you're getting out of bed, you're going to make yourself breakfast. So you said, talk to yourself as if you're talking to your best friend, because you'd never say to your best friend that, look at the state of you. You would be full of empathy and love and admiration, actually. So I try and remember that. Sometimes it's not hard. And if everything goes to pot, I do some exercise. And that never fails. Or some yoga, or just somehow moving my body enables me to move some of the anger and the fear around, and takes me out of my head a little bit.
It's so powerful. And I have to repeat what you just said there. So it's the frequency of joy, not the intensity of it. And I think the first thing is for people also to think, what brings them joy? I remember doing an exercise and I wrote all these little things down in my life. And I realized most of them, they don't cost a penny.
No. Totally.
Going for a walk with a good girlfriend, you said, or having your favorite coffee. These things are free and often available. And the things that, money gives you options, doesn't necessarily buy you happiness, conversation for another day. But I just think people finding what that joy is and then sprinkling it throughout your week, as you say.
Yeah, it's so important.
And another thing throughout life in recent years, the word adapted you've used quite a few times, adapted to new ways of life. But society and the media can sometimes be helpful and can sometimes be difficult. Now, one thing I know, and you said this, that these labels that come up as soon as life events happen, I'm a a solo parent, I'm a widow, I'm a bereaved parent, I'm an amputee, I'm disabled, all these words. How did you manage with that? Like these labels that society throws at us. And I also want to ask you about this word disability.
Yeah.
Do you think about this?
No, I really hate the sort of broad categorization of all of those labels because you meet one sole parent and they'll be completely different to another sole parent. You meet one disabled person, they'll be completely different to another disabled person. And so when I'm a bit woe is me, I will kind of mention all these labels to myself, but then none of them ring true. I know they're factually right, but I don't actually feel like any of them because I feel like a team with my kids, so I don't feel like a sole parent. I know I'm a widow, but again, that is kind of someone dressed in black in their 80s and it's Queen Victoria. It doesn't feel like me. And disability, disable means not able. And I've done everything I can in the last 10 years to be able. And so I feel able-bodied. I know technically part of my body is missing, but every disability is completely different. Everyone's mindset is completely different. I think what fascinated me was then kind of learning what I could do. So I've had a bit of my body taken away. Let's see how it works now. Let's see what I can do. And, incredibly nowadays, there's all these amazing prosthetics and blades. And I wanted to see how I could push it and how I could adapt. And so I don't feel that I am not able-bodied. Having said that, my disability is different to quite a few in that I can either walk or I can't. So I can either wear my leg, or if I have a friction burn or a rub, or I injured it playing tennis in June, diving for brilliant volume, mind you. I tore like a muscle at the back and it really swelled up. So I couldn't wear my prosthetic leg for about 3 weeks. I was back on crutches, mentally right back at the beginning, 2013, down, depressed, lack of independence again, can't do anything. So it's kind of extremes my disability, whereas I know a lot of people are living with a disability kind of every day and it's managing that. But it's just, I think, getting used to what you can do and knowing your limits, knowing your boundaries, slightly pushing your boundaries a little bit to see if there's other things that you could be doing. I know a big thing for me was proving to the kids that I was capable, that they'd been left with one parent and it wasn't just the rubbish disabled one, that I was still going to be totally capable of looking after them. But I'm not a huge fan of labels at all, because I think it can give people a way out as well of thinking, well, I have a disability, or well, I'm a sole parent. So, and that everyone is completely and utterly different within that.
It is, and I think that, looking at this label of disability that we don't like, but I want to break it down for people listening, is that I was looking, and those with a disability are the world's largest minority group, and that's 16% roughly of the world live with a disability. Many of them are visible, many are not visible, and that's according to the United Nations. But there is a moment, and you've shared this with me before, and I do want to go into it, because those people who, how do I say this? Not all disabilities are visible. And they make comments, people in society who are not supportive. If you're pulling into a certain car park space, and just because people can't see that disability is visible, just tell me about that story if you know where I'm going with this, of what you had to do.
I've had that a couple of times actually, where I've pulled up with my blue disabled badge next to a supermarket and parked in the space next to the supermarket, got out, with my jeans on so I don't look like I'm an amputee. And an older lady kind of ran up behind me very forcefully, tapped me on the shoulder, said, excuse me. I'm not sure if you realise, but you're parked in a disabled bay. And I said, yes, I do realise, because I do have a disability. Shook me up and down and she went, well, you look very fit and healthy to me. And I said, well, thank you very much. That's kind. But I'm an amputee. And if I can't wear my leg, then I can't walk. So I need to park near the supermarket because I'll be in my wheelchair. And she said, well, I still think there are other people more worthy or something of it. And that's right. And she didn't believe me. So she said, well, no, I don't think you are. Kind of, no, you're not. like that. And I said, no, I actually am. So I ended up taking off my prosthetic leg in the fruit and veg aisle and showing her. And then she said, I still think there's other people more worthy, and kind of stormed off. That's happened a couple of times. And it's weird. And it's things like on the underground, if my leg's really sore, sometimes it cramps quite a lot when it's really hot or really cold. And I don't have a visible disability. And I know there's special seats for people with disability, but I can't go up and go, excuse me, I'm disabled. Can I sit down, please? It just feels a bit wrong. So I think it is hard. And I think I would say to people not every disability is visible. And also not every emotion. Like, I remember thinking grief is completely invisible as well. No one knows if I've just had an awful nightmare about Emily and I'm really struggling today. So mental health is, issues are kind of invisible as well. But I think the other thing on disability that I've realised is, you say kind of 16% of the world has disability. Obviously that increases as we get older. So it's sort of 11% when we're young. It's like 25% of working adults, 53% of over 65. So the chance of getting a disability as you get older are obviously much higher. So you're not disabled yet could be a way of kind of saying it, and challenge our own prejudices and assumptions. And, I know that I had prejudices and assumptions before I became part of the disabled community. And, I'm really not proud of that at all, of looking at people as different in a wheelchair. Was when I was in a wheelchair, it was awful if people didn't look at me and they looked at the person that was pushing the wheelchair. What am I invisible? Everyone who has a physical or mental challenge is still the same kind of person. Just have a conversation. And I know a lot of people feel awkward, and there's a great charity in the UK called Scope who have a brilliant campaign called Challenge the Awkward, which is sort of, why do we feel awkward about people with a disability? Just go say hi. Do you need any help? Or nice trainers, or how are you? What do you want for lunch? Just as they would a friend or be human, be a human being.
Exactly. Well, and this is the whole point. It's just be a human and just be kind.
Yeah.
I think it cost that lady. I mean, it infuriates me. That's the type of person
it
who
was so annoying. Yeah.
And it's just such a shame that those people are in society, but it's people listening that I think we've all got an opportunity. We talk about allyship, to point out bad behavior, to educate each other. Those people are around us. And we need to call out the bad behavior. But for you, Victoria, I know as the years go on, the challenges, like all of us, they sometimes keep coming. And November of 2017 in Fulham.
Oh my goodness, that was awful. So I'd come back from a weekend away in the country, and actually I didn't put that on my low. I should have done. I'd only gone for one night, but I'd taken 3 of my incredible prosthetic legs that are just beautiful, and the skin is made to look like my skin, and freckles are painted on with a paintbrush. And so I had a high-heeled leg and a blade and my normal leg, and I stopped to meet someone for coffee on the King's Road, and my car was broken into by thieves on mopeds. So they smashed the window, they have a look to see if there's anything in there. There was a bag, so they took it and went off with my weekend bag with these 3 beautiful, incredible legs that actually felt like I'd lost part of my body. I mean, the shock they must have had when they opened the bag. And I did loads of publicity about, please, can you just leave them at a hospital or a police station, or, nobody else can use them. They are completely bespoke to me and my leg. And they are, about £10,000 each. So could you please drop them somewhere? Nothing. I think they were just disposed of. So that was awful. It just felt it was such an infringement on my mobility, my way of life. I'd started to build myself up a bit, and they make me feel whole. They make me feel like the old Victoria. I had a high-heeled leg that I could finally wear heels again and feel really feminine. And it was really sad.
It's just, again, it goes back to society and people and these actions and how it makes people feel. But, against all odds, again, Victoria, and I know you're very humble in your approach, but just your positivity in the face of adversity is remarkable. And I don't think you know this, but I first heard you speak when I was at a conference, probably like 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
And I remember you were on stage and I heard your story for the first time, and I just thought, wow, like I needed to, and I probably won't remember, and I came around and I found you. And then since then we obviously had a conversation and we do a lot together.
Yeah.
But it is just this, it's for people listening, it's not without its challenges. There's challenges that can consistently and constantly hit you, but it's the way in which you deal with it. That those days when you are shuffling down the stairs and thankfully your friend is there, how you manage it, because so many people would give up, Victoria.
Yeah.
They would. And I know you said it's the maternal instinct, but I've met mothers, you know, who have given up even with the kids. I go back to the start, this bold Victoria sleeping with Chippy and defying her against her mum, and I don't want to follow society. Is there part of this that's always been within you from a young age of, right, that's it, I'll show them, or, you know, you're not going to label me?
I think there is definitely a stubbornness, and that's probably nature and nurture. I think my mum was quite stubborn as well and kind of brought me up to be like that. There's definitely a positivity, which I've realised has massively helped me. I also really enjoy life. And I think that makes a massive difference. You know, against all odds, I do wake up really looking forward to my day. I love my friends. I love meeting new people. I love new challenges. I love, you know, and I think having that enjoyment of whether it is the small cup of coffee or popping for a drink or a dog walk, I love all of that. So I think I get so much enjoyment out of life. Life is always going to throw challenges at us. I think that's what I've realised. I think I'd had mine and it was kind of like, okay, that's it. You're done now for the rest of your life. Of course, then, you know, get my legs stolen. Every year is going to bring all of us different challenges. Life is change. And I think I want to be resilient in the way that I don't just break when something awful happens. I don't just crumble like stone onto the floor. I kind of visualize myself more like bamboo, like kind of, okay, that's knocked me a bit, but I'm going to come straight back up again.
Interesting.
Rather than just completely crumble and I don't know what to do and I'm helpless and I'm fishing around. And so that's kind of the way that I think of life now, is trying to be strong and resilient, trying to have fun. You know, life should be about fun. And I remember the first time I laughed after the accident, I felt so guilty about it. And some girlfriends came over. It was my birthday in July and bought a bottle of champagne. And I was just like, what on earth are we celebrating? And they said, because you're still here. And I am still here. And it could have been any of us that day. And it's really important to appreciate, you know, and I know it's too worthy to say, wake up and imagine every day like it's your last. I don't do that in any way. But I do appreciate life so much. Yeah. And I think that really helps me live life to the full.
And life for you over the years, you mentioned your career in the early days was around advertising, the media. And I know recently you've retrained and you're in the world of psychotherapy, which I think is fascinating. I did spy your book as you came in as well. You're reading around client-centric therapy. But do you feel that we have to go through adversity for our eyes to be opened up to our purpose?
Gosh, that's a really difficult question, because I don't know. I have gone through adversity and I am a very different person to the one I was before adversity. So all I can do is talk about my experience and, you know, 41-year-old me who was rushing around, trying to get the kids to school, trying to get the kids to tennis and swimming, and not really probably being that present, maybe not even particularly appreciating the life, the amazing life that I had, because there was no perspective. There was nothing to measure it against. So maybe unless we do have something to measure it against. I know I'm a much more empathetic person. Weirdly, I think I enjoy life more now because I've got more awareness of what I do enjoy. I've done so much soul searching and kind of work on myself, and I now want to help other people find that as well and grow and find their true potential and stop things that inhibit us, that take over our lives and stop us enjoying life to the full.
Remarkable. And I think that the point there, as you say, it's we can only speak from personal experience, but I think we can all learn from other people's stories and experiences, that you don't have to go through it yourself. But if you actively, consciously listen and think, and hopefully people will take a lot away from this episode, to just go and appreciate life. Even if I always say you live at 100 miles an hour, there's those moments of pausing. It's nice to speak about this because I sometimes in a busy day I'll walk and just appreciate the blue sky. Like, how lucky are we to be alive in this world right now? And I just think for everybody, even right now, just to take a moment to just be grateful for that. But Victoria, now this obviously is the Superpower podcast show where it's my job to pull out what I believe is your superpower, and there's just so much here that my mind is whirring. But before I go into that and share that with you, I've got a few quick fire questions that I know I've not shared with you in advance,
Okay.
right? I feel like notoriously my quick fires are always like not the easiest.
Oh,
So they
no.
require a bit of thinking, but I'll have a bit
Okay.
of fun with them as well. So my first one is, okay, what's the most random or adventurous thing on your bucket list that none of us might expect about you?
Oh, gosh, that's a really interesting one, isn't it? My bucket list has got smaller and smaller. I think I used to want to do more, and now I've kind of kept my world in small because I've been thinking I've had so many challenges in life. Can I actually go and have any more challenges? I'd like to go to Australia. I've never been to Australia. I know that's not super exciting, but my sister-in-law lives in Melbourne.
Oh.
I've never been out there, so I'd love to do a bit more kind of traveling.
Yeah.
I think over the last few years, holidays have been something that's been quite difficult, kind of me taking the kids away. And so I think as they're getting older, we can do more of that sort of traveling.
Nice. Love it. Another one is, if you were given a one-way ticket to any place and time in the past or future, where and when would you go and what would you do there?
I used to be obsessed with kind of Tudor times and
Me
the
too.
outfits and the dresses and all of that, and be Anne Boleyn and that sort of thing, and seduce Henry VIII. But then they had really awful teeth and bad breath
God.
and no facial skincare. So, but maybe there.
And the final one here is, if you could have an unlimited supply of one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That is so easy. And it's so ridiculous, but I really love San Pellegrino sparkling water. So even during COVID, when there was such kind of limited stock of everything, including toilet rolls, my one was like, have they got San Pellegrino?
Is that the plain? Just
the
standard?
plain,
'Cause they do
green,
orange and all
fizzy
sorts.
bottle. And I know it's expensive, but for me, it's the gift that keeps on giving throughout the day.
Love it. Right. Well, it's my job now, obviously, to just work out what your superpower is. And there's loads of words springing to mind, but I don't like on the show just being cliche or using words that we all know every single day. So one's coming to mind. Just bear with me. Can't multitask.
Okay.
Get my spelling right as well. Okay.
Make sure I understand what the word is.
It's all right. I always define it as well, because I think part of the show is also introducing new words
Okay.
that sometimes we don't always know. And I think we've got to break them down because I always like to learn. And this word for me, it's come to mind for me because throughout your life, Victoria, and I don't say this just easily, whether that's 2013 or going forward, it's your ability to continue. Now, resilience is thrown around a lot, and I think it's a powerful word, which for me is how you know when to go into the recovery zone and when you know how to go into active zone. But for me, it's your mindset. It's deeper. It's the way in which how in control and how powerful your mind is and the way that you've navigated your emotions. Whenever I meet you, you speak so, not just so powerfully, but just so almost motivational about what's happened to you. Now, this word, it's fortitude.
Ooh.
And just to break it down a little bit, because fortitude, which is strength of the mind, and it's how one can control the mind in the face of adversity. And I think it's just never been so fitting for you, whether that is, I'm looking back, as you said, during the accident of 2013, losing your leg, these labels that society throws at us, whether that's the maternal instinct that's kicked in. I'm just fascinated with how you've controlled your mind, and it's not always easy. And I just want to ask you, what comes to mind when I say this to you?
I think it's really fitting. I would have chosen probably positivity because I feel like that's the thing that if I'm struggling, I'll go, no, it will all be okay. Let's just keep going kind of thing, keep trucking on. But I think fortitude, you're right. There's an internal strength and control that I probably haven't really been aware of, but that was there before the accident as well and hasn't just suddenly appeared. And thank goodness I have, because it's helped me to navigate the bringing up of 3 kids on my own, the learning to walk, the re-engineering of myself and my life and my family. And suddenly, my life was going in one direction and then there was a very sharp turn towards another, which I don't know how I've done it, actually. I really don't. No. And I look back and think, how did I cope with those first couple of totally horrific, bleak, dark years where there was no hope, and there wasn't even an entry in my diary. It was so horrific. But I think fortitude rings quite true. I'm quite happy with that, and I'll really go and think about that. Thank you.
No, and I think because you are incredibly positive, optimistic. We did also have that on another episode that might be coming, and I never used the same one twice. Okay. It's an extra challenge to me, despite you being very positive. But I think it's that deeper. I meet people who are positive, but then you've got this pragmatic, action-focused, must keep moving forward, must get on with it, the bamboo that will not crumble.
Yeah.
And I love bamboo, actually. I feel like, don't quote me on this, but there's something about bamboo that I believe it's watered every single day for X number of years and it doesn't grow. And then I think it's in year 5, people listening can Google and let me know if I'm wrong. I think it's year 5, then it grows meters.
Wow.
And it's worth YouTubing this. It's fascinating. Yes. And so I feel that you're not only bamboo because you will never crumble, you might sway, but also knowing how you almost water yourself, your learning, your growth mindset to continuously being a better Victoria every single day.
And I love that. I think watering myself rings really true as well. I've learned to be so good at self-care, looking after myself, making sure that I do things that I like doing, because you can't just do all the hard stuff. Otherwise it's just not worth it. There's no joy. So joy, I think, is a big thing for me as well.
Now my final question is always the same question, which is, Victoria, in years to come, what's your legacy, or what do you want to be known for when we say Victoria Milligan?
Gosh, that's a difficult one. I mean, I think I would love to be an incredible psychotherapist that help people go through pretty dramatic, sudden changes of life. And, it's not about me and my story, it's about me helping them in their story. So being able to guide other people through really unknown and very, very scary territory in a way that I wasn't and didn't have a guide. And I think that would be an amazing gift and something really worthwhile doing.
Wonderful. And it's so powerful. And if people now, and I know you're training or qualified now.
I'll be qualified next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then will you be working with clients one-to-one?
Yes.
So people can reach out to you?
Yeah. Work with private clients.
Okay. So that's in 2025.
Yes,
depending on when people are watching this.
Summer 25.
And people can find you online.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Where's the best to find you online?
Well, probably on Instagram. So I've got Victoria Milligan Fitness, because I do personal training as well. So
of course you do. Amazing. Fortitude just keeps ringing true.
Well, it's always quite good, because if I can do 20 burpees with my blade, the client has absolutely no excuse.
Well, I remember in lockdown, we did those online workouts for some of our clients.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, bloody hell, I can't, to your point, I'm just like, morning, let's go.
Come on, I've got one leg, get on with it.
Victoria, thank you so much. You've taught me so much, and you're a huge inspiration, and I will be here supporting you in any which way I can, and I hope people will reach out and get in touch with you. So
thank you, Gian. Thank you.
Also, a thank you to you, our listeners, for being part of this community. By watching, subscribing, liking, and also leaving comments on all the videos, it honestly really helps us to grow the show and to invite more incredible guests to join us in the future. Now, our plans are super exciting, and with your support, we can make this even bigger. And so if you do enjoy the show, please do hit the follow button on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening to the podcast. It really means so much to me and all of us at the Superpower Podcast. And if you're watching us on board your in-flight entertainment, remember to follow us when you land, or maybe you've got Wi-Fi in the sky. For now, it's a huge thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Superpower Podcast with me, Gian Power.